Hey guys, how are you all doing during this very crazy 2020 that we've got going on? Oh my God, it's a trip, isn't it? And you know what, I was thinking just the other day actually, there was this meme being shared on Facebook just before 2020 kicked off, and the caption was 2019. But did you die though? And it was just, oh my God, because obviously we thought 2019 was intense enough and we didn't know anything at that point. And it's funny that the caption was, did you die? Because as we're increasingly seeing now, 2020, this is the year that we're all being asked to die. We're all being asked to shed great chunks of our previous identities, in order to transform, as cheesy as that might sound. Because, well, this is the death of an entire era. It really is, and I want to speak about that today in this little video, and I want to bring Mars Retrograde into the equation as well. That's going to be kicking off tomorrow. But yeah, before I do, I wanted to share a little bit about where I am, because I'm from the UK, but I'm not actually in the UK at the moment. I am actually on Koh Phangan in Thailand. So this is a very exotic backdrop I've got going on for you, my bedroom wall. But yeah, I got back in December, but I actually used to live here. I used to own a party hostel in Bantai, so I used to look after all the full moon reprobates, coming to get completely annihilated for full moon party. Now, obviously, this isn't full moon party island anymore, but you know what? It's still full moon island. The really beautiful thing is, we still live by the cycles of the moon. There are many rituals, many ceremonies celebrating the moon, celebrating the energies that are surrounding us always. And what's really struck me over the last few weeks, actually, in particular, but it's been going on over the last few months, is the real concrete change that's palpable here on the island. I mean, obviously we're so blessed. We're really lucky in the sense that here, it's like an anomaly. Honestly, there's no virus, there's no COVID, there's no lockdown, there are no restrictions, there's no fear, so there's no fear mongering, but as well as that, there's actually there's a real increase in this feeling of solidarity and oneness and unity and like community between everyone who's here, everyone who's living here. And I mean everyone. I'm talking about the Thai locals, I'm talking about Burmese, Asfarang, that's the Thai word for foreigners. We're all increasingly living in this real sense of harmony, which is incredibly beautiful. Not to say that didn't exist before, but, for example, when I had the hostel, there was always harmony to a degree. This is an incredible island, it always has been. But, there was more of a social barrier, between the different groups of people who live here. Not anymore. It's really interesting. It's just almost, this island is becoming, well, for want of a better word, this is the only word, utopia. This island is becoming a utopia. And listen, I'm not just saying this just because I want to talk about where I live, but actually, this is a fundamental point of my whole talk. This kind of unity, this kind of harmony, this sense of oneness is, I really firmly believe that this is what we're all moving towards, ultimately, globally, as a collective, which, yeah, I know may sound a little bit far-fetched at the minute, what with everything that's going on worldwide, it's pretty damn intense. Although, of course, I suppose you won't be surprised to hear that astrologically speaking, things are going to get a whole load more intense over the next few months. And that's not surprising, really. And as we're seeing at the minute, whole structures are currently being completely decimated, all the old order, all the old structures, the societal structures, the governmental structures, everything that we have been living inside and whose laws that we've been conditioned by, since our birth, they're just being razed to the ground. They're completely being destroyed. But in order for the new to emerge, that's a really important point to really kind of hold on to during these next few months, and obviously we need to fasten onto our seatbelts because there's a lot of crumbling that's still to go, but it's ultimately in order for this new world of, as cheesy as it might sound to some people, of unity, of harmony, of oneness, of freedom, utopia, for that to emerge, and all the old needs to completely, it needs to go, which is the good news. Well, the fact that we're moving into a utopia is the good news. The bad news, I suppose, is that there's still some crumbling to go. So yes, let's talk about this crumbling then, I mean, it's already happening now. It's been happening for weeks and weeks or months, really. But it's going to be coming into full force. Well, it's coming into full force right now, and it's especially with the advent of Mars Retrograde. That's going to be going retrograde tomorrow, actually. So let's talk about that. Mars Retrograde. So what can we say about Mars? So Mars is actually the planet of war. It's the warrior energy. But more than that, it's actually if you really kind of strip the meaning back to its bare bones, what we've really got here is a planet of asserting one's own independence. It's not a planet that wants to listen to outside authority. It wants to be the only one in charge. It's the warrior. Mars is about asserting one's own truth, one's own way of living. It's interesting to note actually that Mars is the energy that we begin to embody when we're 2 years old, with the terrible twos, and we really start to fight for our own independence. This is me, I don't want to listen to my mum, all the rest of it, all the great delights that come with the terrible twos. So on a positive note then, there are obviously positive and negatives to every sign and every planet. But on a positive note, with Mars, we've got courage, we've got willpower, we've got drive, we've got ambition, passion, all the good stuff, all those good things. But on the negative side of things, we've got aggression, we've got violence, we've got the inability to listen to other opinions, we've got pushing one's truth onto others, we've got foolhardiness, impulsivity, anger, rashness, aggression, we've got war, an intense anger that's very much about me and mine and what I'm doing, and I'm first. So now what we've got with Mars, so Mars is in Aries at the minute, and Mars rules Aries, so the energy of this planet is super strong at the minute, and it's actually squaring all the big guns which are currently in Capricorn, so all the social and the collective planets. We've got Jupiter and Saturn, the two social planets, and we've got Pluto, one of the collective planets, and they're all in Capricorn. Now Capricorn, amongst other things, Capricorn symbolizes the patriarchy, symbolizes institutions, big corporations, dogma, structure, the government. And we're really starting to see that, with this energy, really play out in a global stage, aren't we? With all these protests, starting to happen worldwide. Everyone is starting to stand up against the governments, railing. They want to live in their own truth. They want to live by their own authority. They don't want to listen anymore. The square coming up against the governments, the patriarchy, patriarchal rule, authority. They're really kind of stamping their own, or trying to stamp their own truths against that which has been oppressing all of us, for so long. Now, the interesting thing about the retrograde is that, a retrograde is when the planet goes backwards. And so when the planet is retrograde, what it's actually asking us to do with the energy is not to express it outwardly. It's more an introspective energy that's being asked of us right now. It's more about internalizing. So all of these feelings that are no doubt percolating, you know, they're starting to really come up within all of us, because this is a strong energy. It's a strong energy of anger, frustration, impatience, just general, I've had enough. All of these strong feelings that are really starting to emerge in all of us, on a personal and a collective level. I mean, for me, the energy started to hit last week. I had a bit of a Barney with a friend of mine. I could totally have dealt with that a lot better. But this is Mars, you know, it comes up out of nowhere sometimes. But what the planet is actually asking of us right now is to really internalize these feelings. And so what that means is to really feel them, instead of going out there blaming and getting angry and projecting our anger. It's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, you know, I'm outraged, I need change, and all the rest of it. It's actually about feeling the anger, feeling all of these awful feelings of frustration, which are well warranted, of course, but really feeling them from a place deep within us. And then what happens is, when we really feel our deep emotions and start to process them, then real truths start to emerge. So for example, well, if I'm so angry at what's happening outside, if I'm so indignant and so frustrated with the governments, with all the policies, with the authorities that are behaving like this, that are making frankly, such a shit show of everything, then, okay, so whose authority can I listen to then? If I don't believe in this anymore, then, you know, what's my truth? Where do I stand in all of this? You know, how do I want to live? And when we start to process all of this, you know, then this Mars energy, which is an incredibly powerful warrior energy, I mean, that can really start to express itself in incredibly positive ways. You know, we've got courage, we've got honor, we've got the ability to really stand in our truth and our own authority, in our own power, in our own independence, you know, independent of whatever we've been told, whatever we've been taught to believe by external authorities, by dogma, by advertising, by media, by the powers that be. You know, we have the ability, or we start to become aware of our own power in all of this, and it's not reliant on external dogma anymore, which is actually, it's really what we're going to need. This kind of, these qualities, this courage in particular, is really what we're going to need in the forthcoming months, because it's going to be intense. It's going to be intense. Oh my God. So I just want to backtrack a little bit, actually. I wanted to talk briefly about the last time I put out a video. It was, oh my gosh, it was back in April. And that actually was a condensed version of my friend and former astrology teacher, May Sim, her fantastic 6-hour webinar on COVID, and on the fact that COVID-19 was actually just a wave, and what we were heading for was a tsunami. And one of the things she mentioned, and one of the things I passed on, was that, you know, that we shouldn't expect things to go back to normal after COVID, or after everything was going on had passed. You know, at that point we were in the middle of lockdown. And one of the other things was the fact that after a brief lull in June and July, you know, things would start to get back to normal to a degree. You know, borders would start opening and people would start to breathe a sigh of relief and all the rest of it, which actually happened, of course. Then things would start happening at breakneck speed again from August onwards. And hey presto, you know, here we all are. We're right in the thick of it. We're right in the middle of it. You know, as I said at the very beginning, you know, this is the death of an entire era. And it's incredible. You know, it's real. This guys, honestly, it's real change. It's phenomenally real change, if I can say that. Because this is the thing, you know, like change, real transformation, you know, it's it was scary, you know. It's not something that happens just on the surface, and it's not something that just happens outside of us, you know. And I always thought this, you know, that I always had a deep mistrust of all politicians. You know, I really just didn't really get involved with any of this, any debates about politics. You know, I really wasn't interested. You know, on some deep level, I always had this like really deep inner knowing or feeling inside me that, you know, it's never going to be a case of just changing the cabinet or changing the government or changing the president or whatever, changing the people in authority. What we would be looking at would be real systemic change, you know, from the roots, from the absolute roots, like a complete rewriting of everything we've ever known of life as we've always known it. Like a deep restructuring of our values, of society, how we've been living our lives. And obviously for that to happen, then, well, we need to change as well, you know, because all our lives have been conditioned and created in accordance with these rules that have been set out by governments, by the powers that be. So, well, obviously, if what they've been teaching us isn't working, and the structures that they've created isn't working, you know, it's all super corrupt and all the rest of it, then, well, we need to completely dismantle everything that we've been doing that's been in accordance with all those rules. Which, you know, it's not easy. It's, you know, it's pretty traumatic to think, oh no, I can't just shirk responsibility and say, oh, you need to change this, you know, this needs to go. I'm so outraged, you know, actually I need to really look at myself, and I really need to see what I've been doing and how I've been living, and, you know, what I need to let go of in order to move into this new world that we are moving into. You know, we're going through some heavy duty death process right now, but we are moving into a new world. And who am I? Who do I want to be in this new world? What can I offer in this new world? And you know, so what this is really all about, this is, you know, an inner revolution. You know, it's about getting rid of all our old psychological patterns, all our old ways of being, all our old conditionings, our habits, our responses to things. You know, we really need to let go of so much, our addiction to status, to money, to who we think we are, and what we think makes us valuable. You know, we really need to let go of all of that and really kind of look inside and, like I said, undergo this huge inner revolution. And this is the thing, that's your Mars retrograde energy right there. It's all about, you know, inner revolution. Because all of these old structures, you know, everything that's been imposed upon us, everything we've been living by, you know, the rule, you know, everything from advertising, media, and everything's kind of been working in conjunction with each other. Authoritarian rule, patriarchal rule, that we must listen to authority, and this has been indoctrinated into us from, well, since we were born. You know, okay, so we must listen to authority, we must get great marks at school, we must listen, we must get a great job, we must, you know, found, you know, if we're not part of a great company, we must found a great company. We must become rich and famous. We must be super successful, have a perfect partner, have perfect children, be perfect. That's always been the message, you know, be as perfect as we can, be the best that we can. And, you know, everything that we don't like about ourselves, you know, everything that doesn't fit into this requirement of being special, of being successful, you know, we just brush under the carpet, pretend it doesn't exist, so that we can just show off our best side, because that's the only thing that's important. And like, be a winner. You know, this has always been the message that's been so indoctrinated into us, you know, be a winner. And yeah, it reminds me of, you know, those like shows like X Factor, you know, all these people just desperate to win, just desperate to be chosen, desperate to be validated, all, you know, crying, emotional in the wings. And you know, it's such a paradox. If you really think about it, it's such a paradox, because if you really think about it, then our need to make something of ourselves, to really be special, to really stand out as individuals against the masses, then actually what we've been doing, you know, in order to achieve this, is actually muting our unique individuality. so that we can fit in, so that we can only show our best sides. So therefore that we can be accepted by society. In a way, it's just a real survival mechanism. And it's based on fear. And this is the thing, it's based on feelings of not being enough, feelings of not ultimately being valuable. And it's based on an illusion of being completely separate from everybody else. And it's not true. It's not true, but nonetheless, it's a big thing that we've all been buying into. How could we not have been buying into it? It's been shoved in our faces. It's what we've been molded. It's what we've been molded by all our lives. We've been behaving like puppets. And yes, of course, if you trace back everything, to our earliest, from the moment of conception, yes, we can trace all our psychological patterns back to our parents and all the rest of it. And there was this book, wasn't there? There was this book. It was called, I read it in my 20s, read it a couple of times. It's called They Fuck You Up, and it was about our parents, what they done to us. And yeah, you could say, well, obviously they had a role to play, and even if you look at your astrological chart from a psychological perspective, then for sure you can trace your psychological patterns, all your habitual responses, all your issues, shall we call them that, for want of a better word, back to your parents. But I don't know, not really, because they've been conditioned and repressed too. The whole of humanity, we've all been conditioned, repressed, and controlled. We've all been taught to hide what we think we don't like about ourselves and wear these masks actually to fit in. We've all been traumatized. We've all been controlled in this way for generations and generations. And yeah, now honestly, we don't need that shit anymore. We really don't need that shit anymore. It's time for us to reclaim our inner authority, to reclaim all of who we are, and to really start to live in our full truth. This is what we really need in order to move forward. And again, this is how we really can use Mars's courage in order to access an ability or an openness to really dig deep and accept all that we are. And acceptance, self-acceptance is such a big thing. I remember I had my very first ceremony with plant medicine, with ayahuasca. I drank for the first time, I think it was, about 5 years ago now. And I went into the ceremony and I was very much coming from a perspective of, well, this is my question, what's my purpose? What am I here for? It was all very ego-driven. Yes, I'd always been very goal-driven anyway, very much a perfectionist, wanting to be special, wanting to make a mark, let's say. And so I went in there and the question was, what's my purpose? And I'm not joking, guys, the answer was just as clear as day: love. And you know what the funny thing is? I was actually, quite nonplussed about that whole concept. I was just, love. Okay. Well, I'm a writer. Do I need to write about it? And the medicine was like, yeah, you can if you want. But you are enough. You are enough just as you are. And well, to be honest with you, that has taken me quite a while to integrate. But this is key. This is a real key message that I wanted to pass on to you from the plants, was that we are enough. We really are enough. All of us are enough. All of us is welcome, and all of us is needed. And we don't need to shame and deny huge chunks of our being in order to fit in order to be accepted, in order to be loved by others, in order to survive. Actually, we don't need to do that. Actually, and as I've already mentioned, this inner revolution really is a point of radical self-acceptance. It's about the ability to be vulnerable and open-hearted and radically honest with ourselves and with others around us, to really live from that place of like almost brutal honesty and self-love and just love in general. Yeah, no shame, just no shame, just this radical honesty and openness, and finding the strength in being vulnerable as well, just to expose all our tender parts. There's nothing to hide anymore. We are free to be ourselves, and this is where this is how we can reclaim our power, because hiding and denying all of these parts of ourselves is actually how we've been giving our power away to the institutions, to the governments, to the powers that be. It's how we've been giving our power away. And to be honest with you, look, there are benefits. There are always benefits to being a victim. Let's face it. In order to fit in with societal constructs as they have always been, we've been allowed, to actually hide all the parts of ourselves that we don't like. We've been able to brush all our issues and everything under the carpet as much as we can, to put these masks on of perfection, and if you've thrived, or if you think that you've thrived in those circumstances, and I certainly thought I was thriving personally, then it's difficult to then open our hearts and then really kind of shed all of that and let all that go. But it's important to recognize that these are the benefits for having given our power away. The fact that we can actually hide what we don't like about ourselves and pretend, actually be actors, and also shirk self-responsibility as well. It's so easy and it's fun to blame, complain about governments and authority, and complain about other people in general, like your partner, for example. Honestly, I used to really enjoy, who's with me on this, I used to really love, hanging out with my mates and just complaining, about our boyfriends. It was over like a white wine spritzer or something. So much fun. But really, this kind of thing, is just not washing. It's just not washing anymore. We need to reclaim our power. We know there's no point in complaining and being angry. There's no point using this Mars energy to be furious at external influence anymore, because you know what? This is key. All of those old systems, all of the old institutions, all of these people in positions of power, they're all going to be crumbling. They are all going to be falling. I'm not kidding you. This is what I firmly believe and feel. They're all going to be crumbling in the next couple of months. So, who's going to be creating this new world? We are. We are. There's not going to be any authorities. Who's going to be creating this? Well, us. So this is why we really need to use this Mars energy, because we need to be ready. We need to be prepared. Which is kind of a little bit scary, I suppose, but no, courage, we can do this, but we need to actually, go deep within now and face our fears and start to live in our truths. It's quite exciting times. There's this phrase, isn't there, that's been mentioned quite a few times this year since lockdown began. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Oh my goodness. So I just wanted to speak briefly then on the reason why I really firmly feel that everything's going to start crumbling. As of now, now Mars Retrograde is going to be kicking off. It's all going to be everything's going to be dismantling pretty damn sharpish. So I'm going to give you some examples as to why I feel this. So I'm going to start with Mason. Again, she's my former astrology teacher, friend of mine. I attended another one of her webinars recently. And so she was talking, obviously she was talking, she was miming. She was talking about the fact that, come October, by the end of October, November, everything that we've ever known, all the old structures of society, governments, the people in power, basically, they are going to they're going to wash their hands off of everything. They're just not going to know what to do anymore. yeah, which you know might sound unlikely to a lot of people, but all the astrological indicators are there to say exactly this, that yeah, they're going to wash their hands. They're not this. They just won't know what to do with any of what's going on anymore. And this insight has been mirrored very strongly by a very good friend of mine here on the island. Her name is Ella Rankin. She's a phenomenal psychic, incredible psychic, and we've done a couple of sessions together on this whole, what can I call it, this whole shift that's going on. And what she has seen is, well, coming up, to be honest with you, she's seen like a bit of a broken world, with, you know, disused buildings, less people. And what she is continually seeing actually are visions of the old energetic grid. So the old system, the old order just being dismantled, and in its place a new energetic grid of light coming in, where the numbers are closer to the Fibonacci sequence, so closer to sacred geometry, I suppose. And yeah, and one of the most interesting things that she told me was that, you know, she could see very clearly that the people in power, the people in positions of authority, they would be, well, first of all, they would be thinking they had everything under control. But secondly, they would be trying very hard to hold on to this old structure. I mean, this is what we can see now. But actually, ultimately, you know, guys, when all is said and done, it's absolutely futile. It's absolutely futile. Yes, so what else can I say? So in my own ceremonies, my own medicine ceremonies, okay, so I did not see visions of the old world collapsing, but what I was continually shown by the plant medicine, by Mother Ayahuasca, was the fact that we would all be going back to the old ways, back to a time where we were more in connection with our own inner authority, our own intuition, and in deep connection with our own truths, and in deep connection with nature and with other people in community. So really kind of going back to, yeah, the old ways of old, when we adhered by, when we were blessed by real ancient shamanic knowing, you know, when we lived in pagan times, for example. It's funny though, I mean, I remember when I was having these ceremonies, actually I experienced a boatload of resistance, or I started to experience a boatload of resistance. Like I was being shown, I was being told to rise in your power. And you know, I was absolutely terrified because I didn't want to stand in my own power. You know, actually I was quite comfortable on many levels. I mean, I completely agreed, and I was happy about this new change that was happening, but I was terrified of change within myself because, you know, I'd always thought I'd thrived in, you know, with the old ways. You know, before I had the hostel, I owned a burlesque cabaret supper club in London. I wrote for magazines, I edited a travel magazine, you know, I had money, I was plenty of friends. I thought I was happy. I didn't want to change myself. And just to really step into my own authenticity was just something I was really resistant against. And so if you can resonate with this, you know, come talk to me because I know all about this. You know, if you felt that you thrived in the old paradigm, you know, if you were making lots of money, or you felt, you know, you had a good standing in the community, and, you know, all the rest of it, then, well, it was time to let all of that go, because to a large degree, all of this belief structure, you know, that we need status, we need a certain standing in the community in order to be special, you know, that's a load of crap, basically. You know, that's not where your power lies. Your power lies within you. So that's something that we really need to let go of now. It's interesting to note that one of the things that I really railed against during my ceremonies, so the medicine was actually telling me that I needed to write, I needed to speak about all of this. And then again, so I did need to write after all, as it would turn out. But again, I was super resistant to it. You know, one of the first things, the thing that kept on bugging me, this is about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, was I can't come out and start talking about astrology and plant spirits. I mean, what about my reputation? What will people think? Real Capricorn, that's a real Capricorn word, you know, status and fear about not adhering to the kind of reputation that you think is going to be acceptable by society. You know, it's not about that anymore. It's not about fitting in. It's about being true to who you are, as scary as that might sound. Because, I don't know, new times are coming and it's time to be prepared. Now, someone who has actually seen plant medicine visions of the destruction of the old world order is someone called Nick Sun. So he's a really great writer, and he's also a shamanic practitioner that I found online just a few months ago. He's written some really great entertaining articles on plant medicine and all kinds of plant medicine, actually. And so he wrote this one article that was called Visions of the Apocalypse. And I really want to read you out an excerpt of that now. So here we go. So this is what the plant medicine said to Nick Sun. Your species is past the point of no return. The crash is inevitable and it's too late to stop it. Shitty shit. What do we do? I asked it. Prepare for the collapse. Learn to be self-sufficient sovereign beings that do not need to rely on large institutions for survival. This codependency on the state keeps you in a state of infantilism that has allowed the collapse to happen. Help awaken as many people as possible into this way of being. I was then shown a map of the world with a population distribution in the form of dots of light. Some dots of light were brighter than others, and when other lights were around the really bright ones, they became brighter as well. These were then able to spread this light to others, like a network of little individual spot fires spreading outwards. There will always be survivors, but what becomes of the world that follows is up to them. So yes, it's up to us, all of this. It really is up to us. So again, this is what we need to use the Mars retrograde energy for. Not a time for conflict, a time for introspection. What do we want to create? What, you know, and what energy are we creating from? Is it an energy of courage? Is it an energy of really living in one's truth and one's own authority? Or, you know, from a place of joy and creation? Or is it coming from a place of fear, a place of anger, a place of blame? Is it coming from, you know, those old belief structures and, you know, the belief that other people are responsible for our own happiness and security, and the feeling that we need to control everything that's happening around us? We need to do the work. We need to focus on ourselves, actually, because, you know, all of that, everything that's happening outside, as much of a shit show as it seems to be at the moment, I feel super strongly about the fact it's going to be happening anyway. It's no matter what we do. So yes, you can go to protests, but really, you know, to a large degree, you know, who are you protesting to? Because they're going to be collapsing. You know, they're going to be collapsing, and so really, this is just a matter now, as I said, not of conflict, but it's actually a matter of surrender, to actually trust in the process. Really trust in the process and finding the courage to let go of everything that's actually no longer necessary now in order to create this new world that's going to be coming in. You know, what don't we need? And having the courage to let go of it all, you know, and just stepping forward as huge chunks of our identity, huge parts of ourselves that we just don't need, you know, that there's been false structures, so that actually our real selves can actually emerge, you know, so that our core selves can really emerge, you know, and each of our core selves is completely different to everyone else's. And that's what we need to do, is like that real inner revolution. This is what the fight is right now. It's the inner fight. Yes. What else did I want to say? Oh, there was something else. Yes, I wanted to really speak briefly on the education system, because there was I really noted there were a couple of reports that I heard from friends, and obviously I read it on Facebook News and all the rest of it. About the fact that A-level results have been completely botched. I don't know what happened, but a lot of people they didn't get the result, or the governments weren't, the authorities, the education boards, they hadn't marked the papers properly, so it meant that some people might not get into the universities of choice. And you know what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And don't get me wrong, I was such a geek at school. Like I said, I'd always been super goal-oriented, super perfectionist, I needed to prove myself. I really had this strong urge to prove myself. And I went to uni, I went to UCL in London. And I studied hard, well, as hard as you needed to. But, there was a real sense of, I don't know whether I believe in this institution. I just couldn't quite get on board with the ideology of it all. I just felt quite separate from it, or not comfortable in it, in fact. And, this continued, when I did my postgrad in journalism, and I could not bring myself to work for news corporations or newspapers, anything like that. So I ended up writing for music magazines, which I thought, I just love to party, which was, as a lot of you who know me, is not a lie. I love to party, and I'm a bit of a rebel, but that really wasn't the case. That wasn't the full case, as I know now. Because we don't need to compete. This is the thing. All those institutions are another example of what needs to go, or the ideology behind it all. Because we don't need to compete with each other in order to survive and thrive anymore. We are all needed. Everyone. There's room for everyone. And we're actually seeing this, which is quite exciting. We're actually seeing this. We've been seeing this since the lockdown. Where loads of courses and loads of people started to emerge with talks, with workshops, everything online in order to share their knowledge. And so this is what we're moving into fundamentally, a real sense of community where everyone's bringing their individuality to the table so that we can share our knowledge, so that there's a real sense of learning from our peers. Which is super exciting. And like I said, there's room for us all. Everyone's abilities, everyone's gifts are completely unique, and they're all needed. Everyone's truths are needed and valued, but everyone's full truths, not everyone's masked truths. So, and this by the way, this is actually what Aquarian energy is all about. You might have heard that, what's that age of Aquarius that we're in right now? Well, this is the ideology of Aquarius. It's all about community. It's all about technology as well, actually. And it's about bringing our individuality to a larger social network. And it's about humanitarianism. And it's about, it's about really letting our weird lights shine, which is it's quite exciting, really, if you think about it. So, yes, that's it in a nutshell. I hope you found this interesting or helpful in any way. I'd love to hear from you with any thoughts that you might have on anything that, on what I've talked about. This is basically the main message I have. Just fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride over the next couple of months, the next few months, as the old order completely crashes. But just stay strong, stay believing, and just stay true to yourself, and let the inner revolution commence. Okay, lots of love, and I'm sure I'll be back at some point soon. Okay, bye.